you're a salesman. What do you sell?
Automobiles. I sell cars. Fords, Mustangs especially. Lots of them.
Yeah?
So the other night I get hooked by a buddy who works for Plymouth, and he challenged me.
Hey, Mustang, you still riding that little toy? Come on with me, and I'll show you a real automobile. A Barracuda.
What would you have me do, duck? Not me, Doc. So I went with him. And I found myself at the Barracuda Owners Club meeting room in the dealership where my buddy works. Ho, I said to myself, this is where I put down my smart-cracking buddy Sam. Him and his Barracudas. And his Barracuda Owners Club. Ha! Just one condition, Sam, baby, I tell him. Let me wheel my Mustang in here, and I'll match you wheel for wheel, spoke for spoke.
Okay, Joe, that's a deal. You bring that kitty car on.
Kitty car, he says. Well, Doc, I figured I'd just take my old buddy down a notch or two by giving him the facts of life.
And now you're sorry you did it?
Not exactly, Doc. What happened is Sam started up with me right off.
I'm telling you, Joe, Barracuda is bigger and heavier and roomier than Mustang. It rides better and drives better. It's easier to get into and more comfortable riding and driving. And you can see better out front and out back.
He's got to be out of his head to make cracks like this, Doc. But being a crafty type myself, I realized the only way to get this nut to see the light is to go right down the line with him. So, I got into the Barracuda. Doc, this may have been my first mistake. Because I had to admit, only to myself, of course, you understand. I had to admit I liked the looks of this Barracuda instrument panel. Sam just let me sit there while I made some mental comparisons. Right off, Doc, I was weakening. Then I turned around to look out back.
See what I mean, Joe? Now, how does your Mustang stack up against that? Do you see that well out back?
No question. I could see better in the Barracuda. And, of course, I didn't have to think very hard to remember what traffic looked like through the back window of my Mustang. I had noticed getting into the Barracuda that there seemed to be a lot more room than in my Mustang, but I didn't want to give Sam the satisfaction. You think he let it pass?
You got to hunch down 4 inches lower to get into your Mustang, Joe. And you've got 3 inches less door opening height to squeeze through. Barracuda's got room. Mustang's cramped.
Sam made a big point about the Barracuda driver's seat being 2% wider than Mustang's and 5.5% higher, with 10% more clearance for the driver under the wheel. I wasn't impressed with this kind of static, but sitting behind the wheel of the Barracuda, I remembered.
Not only that, Joe, but we also custom fit our seats by a 6-way adjustment right here in the dealership service department to give you a driving position that makes for comfort and relaxed control. You can't do that with a Mustang.
I had to admit he was right again. You can't do that with a Mustang.
Now, you've noticed Barracuda has the headroom, hip room, and shoulder room up front, Joe. More room than you've got in a Mustang, and we keep it that way. Barracuda's got the headroom, leg room, hip room, and knee room in back, too. Enough room for passengers to ride in comfort. You can't say that about your Mustang.
By this time, I'm beginning to get some kind of a complex. I could learn to hate this guy.
Barracuda seats 3 men in back, comfortably, and they ride comfortably. With Mustang, you can hardly get the 3 men in the back seat unless ride them there. That Mustang of yours is really small, Joe. And it's even smaller back here than it is up front. And how about this big utility compartment in the Barracuda, Joe? We've got over 8 cubic feet back here for anything we want to carry. Luggage, sports equipment, picnic baskets, you name it. Your Mustang's got nothing at all by comparison. With a rear compartment wide open, there's enough room in this Barracuda to give Mom and 1 or 2 of the kids a place to sleep on a vacation trip. More than 23 cubic feet of space. Well, that's enough room for 7-foot skis, the kids' toboggan, your bird dog. You take your pick, Joe. Barracuda is a sportsman's sports car.
I know even the Mustang Fastback won't take all that stuff in the back, wide open, but I didn't think Sam knew it. By now, I wished I hadn't thought about the Mustang Fastback at all, because it's not really a true fastback. And you can't even see out back like you can in a Barracuda. I was hoping Sam wouldn't say anything about it. But he did. And he added a crack about the Mustang Fastback rear seat.
You really got nothing back here in your Fastback model, Joe. You can't even seat 2 men comfortably. And your own Ford literature says the Mustang dimensions here are not applicable. What's that mean, Joe, not applicable?
That was dirty, Doc. Because there's only one way to figure that backseat area. There's no room at all. That's what not applicable means, and Sam knew it. What a dirty guy.
Yeah?
Joe, this Barracuda is really two cars. It's a sports car, and it's a family car. With Barracuda, you've got it both ways. And both ways, it beats Mustang, admit it.
Admit nothing. We've got it over you like a tent in power.
Wrong again, Joe. It's a seesaw on the standard engines. Barracuda has 145 horsepower in the standard 6 to Mustang's 120. In the standard V8, Barracuda delivers 180 horsepower to Mustang's 200. And it's another seesaw on the optional V8s. Barracuda's optional V8 turns up 235 horsepower. Mustang's optional V8 delivers 225 horsepower. Of course, you do have the 271 horse high-performance option, and you can get it if you want to take your chances. But Ford sure isn't taking any chances with this one because they'll only back it for 90 days or 4,000 miles. All Barracuda engines and powertrains are backed by a 5-year, 50,000-mile warranty.
Well, I bet we have more options than you do, Sam. We can tailor-make practically a custom-built car for you when you buy a Mustang.
Yeah, that's what all your ads say, Joe, but look. Barracuda has an optional suspension package, our special Formula S package, racing stripes, fast ratio manual steering, a sport package, air conditioning, a console, and optional disc brakes, 3-speed optional torque flight, automatic transmission, power steering, 4 on the floor. What do you have that we don't?
A tachometer?
Nope. It's an option on both Barracuda and Mustang. Yeah, but since you raised the point, Joe, Barracuda has a trip odometer and a vacuum gauge as standard equipment. And Mustang doesn't have this sports driving equipment at all, even as an option.
Doc, I was about ready to throw in the towel, but Sam wouldn't quit. He was moving in for the kill, and I was beginning to get scared.
I don't blame you.
And what about brakes, Joe? Now, wouldn't you say brakes help a sports car perform like a sports car? You bet they do. Well, Joe, Barracuda's brakes are bigger than Mustang's. Over 34% more effective brake lining area on the 6s, almost 20% more on the V8s. And as you know, that means quicker, surer stops and longer lining life.
Then, Doc, that Fink really let me have it, right in a breadbasket. He says,
Wouldn't you like to drive the Barracuda, Joe?
oh, boy, there I was, and liking it. I began to notice things I'm sure Sam doesn't know to this day. And you think I'm going to tell him? Ha! Things like how you can shift that Barracuda torque flight transmission manually for sports car driving control. I can't do that with my Mustang automatic. Things like how Barracuda's power steering ratio is faster than my Mustang, almost 15% faster the way I figure it, and you know what that means in sports driving. I knew my Mustang didn't handle as smooth as this Barracuda, and Sam put a lot of it down to Barracuda's torsion bar front suspension system. Better control, he said. My Mustang's still got coil springs up front. Doc, I can't stand it anymore. I just got to have a Barracuda of my own. Even if it means...
Your job, Joe? It doesn't have to be that bad. Fortunately, my boy, I myself happen to be the proud owner and driver of a Barracuda. And also, an active member of the fun-lovingest, fastest-growing group of sports car activists you ever saw, the Barracuda Owners Club. No need for you to join Barracuda Owners Anonymous, Joe. When you feel the urge, call me, and I'll let you drive my Barracuda in an Owners Club rally.
Gee, Doc, would you do that for me?